Okay, and we are back. Sorry, I had a technical problem here with OBS, but now it's okay. So, yeah, like I said, the first thing I did really is to do background research on this person, because on the internet we can all claim that we're like Bill Gates or whatever. Doesn't mean that we're actually Bill Gates though, or anybody. So the first thing you do is basically you go to Google or any other search engine really, and you type this guy's name. So in this case, it's Nick Schroeder, and then he likes to talk about climate change apparently. So you add that into the search and see what pops up, and then you go through the records. So here we see academic freedom lecturer takes on claims of climate change. That sounds pretty promising, but then you read the thing and it's actually talking about Michael Mann, who takes on those who deny climate change and highlighted the importance of acting to combat this misinformation, I guess is the next word. So again, this is not about Nick Schroeder. It's about Michael Mann. And I know Michael Mann. I believe he's actually my friend on Facebook. So, uh, yeah. The next one, how climate change denial is driving us crazy. Science blogs. So this one here, I think it's actually the same thing, but I'm not sure. Let's have a look. So this one, yeah, that's the same thing actually. It's the same article that is basically kind of the same. Transform yourself with climate truth Kickstarter. Transform yourself climate. Okay. So again, nothing comes from Nick Schroeder. Like that's the key point here. There's really like, the only thing you find here is some kind of opinion piece on trip.com, whatever that is. And he says global warming is an illusion, blah 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 blah. He always uses the same tropes. Okay, so basically he copy pastes the stuff here. There is a comment section on Skeptical Science. Now Skeptical Science is a good website. It's a great source for information. It's basically run by John Cook, who I interviewed before. He's analyzing human psychology when dealing with climate change, because you have to understand where people's behavior comes from usually, and so he does that. So Nick Schroeder maybe appears in that comment section as well, maybe peddling that bullshit. Anyway, so then you go into the meat here. And so this is from University of Michigan academic. This is the thing I just read a while ago. So this is Michael Mann. Here he is. He's talking about something that climate change is an environmental threat, which is very true. It's getting much worse actually. Last about 2 weeks ago, in Tokyo at the end of June. So, right, it was, they recorded 45 degrees Celsius in, well, I mean, it was obviously during the daytime, but 45 degrees, they said like it just never happened. Never goes that high. I mean, Japan does get very hot in summer, very steamy because of all the humidity as well. But there's a kind of like ceiling usually, and usually what I'm saying that actually is because these type of high temperatures, typically you encounter them at the end of July, August, etc. But this time it happened in June, and that's actually one of the predictions of the climate models, is that yes, it's going to get hotter, but the number of hot days is going to expand. So before, say you had 30 hot days a year. Well, now it's going to be 35. Then it's going to be 40. Then it's going to be 45, 50, 2 months, 3 months. Especially if we don't do anything. And I have to say, like, just looking at all the responses to climate change so far, basically we are doing almost nothing. Like, it, I know that some things are being done. Yes, it's great, but you know the emissions are still rising. the ppm concentration, for carbon is still going higher. So yeah, you can point and say, well, yeah, we planted these forests there and that forest there, and we have carbon capture technology there. We're using more solar here and there, more electric vehicles, etc. And all of that is great. I'm not saying that we should do nothing, because that's a stupid ass position to have. We need all the possibilities combined to make a dent. But I'm saying that even with all the progress so far, but again, I think it's just very little. That's the thing. Um, we're not seeing that kind of dent that is required. So yeah, I know there was COVID as well, and there were some. You see a small, you see a dip there, yeah, after COVID. That's true. But people say like, oh look, COVID has solved it. We don't have to worry about climate change anymore. It's done. And that is, again, that is a blatant lie. You're being lied to. Somebody's lying to you, okay? Yes, there was a dip during the 2020 period, but guess what? In 2021, we bounced back, and we're now higher than 2019. So everything is going up. And that's what you have to remember here. So anyway, going back to this article here. So it's an article, Michael Mann giving this presentation here, as you can see. So now you go into the comments, and there he is. There's Nick Schroeder. Wow. So anyway, this guy, he says a bunch of stuff here. And you know what? I will drop the links in the description of this video. So like you can go and check it out. But just be warned that, first of all, like, a lot of the sources that he gives here is actually from one source, writer beat or whatever. So that I'm very skeptical when people do that, when they go to one source only. Like usually, if you want to prove a point, the best way to do that is to give multiple demonstrable pieces of evidence. That's how people are more like convinced that you may be telling the truth, but definitely one source is not enough. Anyway, uh, just reading the comments here. So again, he wrote his stuff here. He wrote his mini novel, and then there he is again. You know, again he repastes the exact same links as he did before, exact same links. And then like there was there people started to come and point out the flaws in that. So this Michael Atzman, he says, Mr. Schroeder, your post is an example of the dangers of incomplete knowledge. And we'll talk about in a second uh, who this Nick Schroeder guy really is, but just wait for that. So, different parts of the solar spectrum are absorbed to a different degree. Visible light is hardly absorbed in the atmosphere, as we know, but infrared, which dominates the black body radiation emitted by the Earth, is absorbed in the atmosphere to a great degree, an effect that is enhanced by CO2 and other greenhouse gases, it must be said. For similar reasons, sunshine heats cars and greenhouses. See this link from the Tennessee educational website. Your calculation has an accounting error. The irradiance of 1361 watts per meter squared is the value when the sun is at the zenith, averaged over the days of the year. When further averaging over the 24 hours of the day, you obtain a significantly smaller value. Therefore, if the Earth didn't have an atmosphere, its average temperature would be minus 18 degrees Celsius, which is true. That's true. It is because of the infrared absorption in the atmosphere that the Earth is warmer. And I just wanted to point out here something that I read, which was pretty funny. Yeah, anyway, I can't find it right now, but this Nick Schroeder guy, he doesn't understand what an atmosphere is at all. He thinks it's something else, basically. So, yeah. Um, This Stephen Hines says a humble scientist is a wise scientist. Anyone making predictions should heed the words of the great philosopher Casey Stengel. Don't make predictions, especially about the future. Well, I disagree with that. This might be a great time to have a thorough discussion on climate change without name calling. Let's admit that there are many, many people in the world who haven't accepted the fact that the planet will always face an uncertain future with imperfect measurements and with imperfect knowledge, humans and politics. Science is never settled. Well, that's true, because what refutes science is better science. So yeah, science is always evolving because you have more data, more evidence, more people looking at it, and yeah, it's never perfect. Like, science doesn't claim to be perfect. It just claims to provide you an understanding of reality, like some kind of method to decode reality. That's what science really is. Um, Oh, yeah. So this is really funny. So this chipster, he says the same Michael Mann who was caught manipulating tree ring data, who colluded to a blacklist scientist from academic journals and now slaps costly lawsuits on critics. This man that was invited to this lecture. So actually, I looked into that particular accusation, and that's nonsense. This is a lie, once again, that they heard somewhere and it's good enough for them. So they just keep repeating that shit online. So this happens a lot on the internet these days. A lot. Um, I really like this last comment. I'm not going to read all of it because again, link is in the description. You can go and check it out. But this person says, it greatly saddens me. So many in the comments parading infamy and rhetoric about science. Firstly, it direct harm they do, and secondly, for the clear lack they have of grasp of what science is. Science is the philosophy or principle holding exact or most nearly true only inference solely from all observation with least assumption, exception, or omission possible, but no more than possible until new observation leads to new inference. That's that's very true. It's very true. And so he says these people, they pollute the discourse with every mischief they can, all patently to avoid paying for the harms their fossil affiliations do. And they call it with no apparent sense of irony, academic freedom. This is so fucking true. This is so true. Like, this is exactly what these people do. The surface of the moon is colder than the surface of the Earth in exactly the ways and exactly the amounts predicted by the physics behind our understanding of AGW, which is, I think, global warming or something like that. Anthropogenic global warming, I believe that's what it stands for. Over 26,000 natural observable proxies for temperature or other aspects of climate change behave exactly as the same physics predicts when too much fossil fuel waste from the biosphere to dispose of efficiently. And these time wasters want to debate the number of scientists who dance on the head of a pin. This is so true. And this is what I find personally really, really frustrating about the world anymore these days, is that it's full of these ignorant fucking dumbasses who, pollute the airwaves, they pollute the internet, etc. And they don't know anything about anything really, but they act so high and mighty. And they, they really do pollute, like comment section, etc. They like copy pasting comments, etc. Just polluting that space. And then people who don't know much about the topic, they read it and they think, well, it has some math in it, so maybe it's reasonable, right? So I'm gonna look up into that guy, and then maybe in the worst case scenario, they end up believing these people, which is the point, unfortunately. So anyway, there's that. So then there's another article here, and again, I'm not sure exactly where. Let's see. So there it is. There's the comment. by Nicholas Schroeder. It's the same guy in May of 2016. It's the exact same fucking shit. Okay? And there it is. So, in this thread, uh, I'm just going to look here. Let's see. So, yeah, he says that, the theory, right, violates the three fundamental thermodynamic laws. Look, again, this is a classic thing that the deniers love to toss about. It's the laws of thermodynamics. Now, they themselves don't understand shit about them, okay? But it's a kind of gotcha. It's a kind of gotcha that they use and they just toss it around all the time. So, this person says, Chris O'Neill, let us know when you get the Nobel Prize for Physics for pointing this out. Yeah, that's exactly what I mentioned in the beginning of my video. Yeah, please go ahead. By the way, the pause, hiatus, lull, stasis was only temporary as expected and ended in 2013. Saying every year the pause continues is just plain silly, whether it comes from a scientist or anyone else. That is so true. And what these shysters do, what they do is they mislead the public by basically looking at what they say is they take a graph, right? So temperature graph, for example, and what they do with it is they zoom in on it. So instead of looking at the big picture, which you should do, that's what you really should be doing. What they do is they zoom in on it. They find maybe 1 month is not enough, but maybe 2 months. And maybe in those 2 months, the temperature is in fact stable, or maybe it even goes down. And then they say, well, that's the general pattern. So that's actually what's happening. So the temperatures are not rising, or look, they're actually decreasing. And then they extrapolate that to the general trend, right? But unfortunately, that gets defeated immediately because once you zoom out and you see the big picture, uh, yeah, it's they're full of shit, basically. Okay, all right, and then so this person says, uh, natural variations can't explain the increase in CO2. With these tiny percentages and high levels of uncertainty, how would anybody else know? Well, the thing is, like, yeah, people do know. This guy points to NASA for the evidence. It seems you don't know what the IPCC is. They include thousands of scientists from around the world producing reports based on peer reviewed scientific papers. So, yeah, that's how we know. True. Look, peer review in the world of science is king. So, you can have your opinion all you want. I'm not taking away your right to have an opinion. You can have your opinion. People have an opinion on God. Doesn't mean that they're right, though. That's the thing. They can't demonstrate it. So, uh, mankind. So, by the way, yeah, it is true that overall we are talking about a pretty small fluctuation in, gases in the atmosphere. That's true. But unfortunately, those tiny changes have a pretty profound effect. And that, again, if you watched my course, you'd know that because I already talked about that. I don't want to repeat myself. So, yeah, just watch my course. It's already in there. If you have any questions, then post questions in my comment sections. Mankind's 2 watts per meter squared contribution is obviously trivial, lost in the natural fluctuations. Nonsense. Atmospheric levels of carbon dioxide were 280 ppm pre-industrial revolution and are now 400 ppm, but that's actually not true either because right now they're over 425 ppm. Whilst in ice ages they were 180 ppm. CO2 and methane, by the way, don't forget methane. It's a huge part of the problem as well. Greenhouse gases, let's say, being a key greenhouse. Oh, okay. CO2 being a key greenhouse gas with known properties such as trapping heat. Spectral analysis shows that yes, we're all responsible for the added CO2 among other greenhouse gases. Our human impact is clear and well established by actual scientists, which Nick Schroeder isn't. Violating three fundamental thermodynamic laws. The energy is coming from our system star and is being trapped in additional quantities by increased levels of greenhouse gases. It is not coming from nowhere, and you really should know that if you understand what you're talking about here, which your claim reveals you don't. Of course, Trendberth, who is one of the climatologists who is often cited, I'll talk about him a little bit later in this video. Apparently, he says they are wrong because the results are not confirmed by the predicted warming, which hasn't happened for 20 years. Now, again, this is a trope that, this is another lie that the climate deniers love to use, is that we actually don't have heating in the past 20 years. Now, that's a lie. That is a lie. It's only what they say, but what the science says is the complete opposite of that. Is that the warming has continued, and that some of the worst warming, in fact, happened in the past decade. Okay, so yeah, every year the hiatus continues. That's what they love to cite. Wrong. The actual scientific evidence says there was no pause. And of course, over the course of the last 2 years, have seen record-breaking temperatures, with 2015 being the hottest year ever recorded. But you have to remember that this comment was posted 2016, and since then we've seen even worse. Okay, so he gives a link to NASA here. You can check it out. Breaking the record set last year, and with virtually every month in the past year and a half breaking global temperature records. Knowing this for fact, which we do, how delusional do you have to be to claim there's still a pause? And especially as science shows, it was never a thing anyway. As Carl Sagan observed, we have been bamboozled, hustled, conned by those wishing to steal our money and rob of our liberties. Um, Yeah, that's not what Carl Sagan was talking about. When he said when he mentioned that in Cosmos, he was talking about clairvoyance and kind of religious figures, these type of bamboozlers, like religious especially, like they get a lot of money. It's a huge scam. So yeah, I think he actually points that out here because there is a YouTube clip here. Carl Sagan accepted the science and strongly urged action against global overheating. It offends me that you would, quote Carl Sagan. It offends me as well. Anyway, there's more to this thread, but I'm not gonna like read all the comments. I'm just gonna again link it, and you're free to go and read the bullshit that Nick Schroeder is spreading around. It's not nice what he's doing. So the next one we're gonna do here, and I do apologize because I think I did actually close all um my threads here, and it has to reload. And unfortunately, when it reloads some of them, it's kind of gone. So